Hello and welcome back. So in this video, we will talk about the untold and forgotten scientific golden age of Islam. Neil deGrasse Tyson, an American astrophysicist and one of the greatest scientists of our time, said it best, quote, "Of all stars that have names in the universe, 2/3 of them have Arabic stars' names." Today, in most places around the world, anytime you heard about Islam, Muslim, or Arabic, many people associate it with something negative. So in this video, we will talk about one of the greatest and positive side of Islam called the scientific golden age of Islam. And anyone who studied in school, science, mathematics, astronomy, physics, know about the golden age of Islam in science. In terms of scientific contributions in the world, there is no other period called Golden Age in human history. During the Golden Age of Islam, around 800 to 1100 AD, algebra was invented. Algorithm is an Arabic word. Our numbers came from Arabic numerals and Indian numerals. In that period, you can find a lot of great discoveries in science, mathematics, agriculture, engineering, medicine, navigation. Star maps was made to assist navigation. Astrolabe was made. But it all fades out and it all stops. The question is why? I will give at least 3 reasons for that. First, we can give an obvious answer about wars and kings and kingdoms. Anytime in world history, a more powerful civilizations meet with a less powerful one, they took advantage of those people. Also in wars, the winner usually take all, including scientific discoveries, and then destroy everything else. The other reason on why the golden age of Islam stops can be found within the Muslim community itself. So Muslim clerics or scholars started to write books giving their own interpretation of Islam, saying things like the manipulations of numbers is the work of the devil. And in modern time, they said wrongly things like science or school is from the West and do not encourage kids to follow and study science. Well, of course, this is completely a wrong interpretation of Islam, because at the beginning of Islam, and especially in the Golden Age, Muslim was at the same time scientist and spiritual. So schools and science is not only from the West. Every culture, every people, from Egypt in Africa to India, to China, to Greece, to our modern scientific time, everyone had a contribution in science at some point in human history. So no, going to school and studying science is not only from the West, and it is not the work of the devil, but it is part of Islam and Muslim tradition as well. It is the cultural heritage and DNA of Islam itself. And science belongs to everyone and to all human beings. And the third reason on why this golden age stops is the non-investment in research and development called R&D from many Muslim countries. The investments of today are the discoveries and innovations of tomorrow. And unfortunately, many countries does not invest a lot of money as a percentage of their national budget or a percentage of their GDP into science, research, and development, and especially in comparison to high-income countries around the world. The World Bank data from 2017 and 2018 shows which countries invest heaviest in research and development. Investments in research and development is the lifeblood of many private sectors organizations, helping bring key products and services to market. It's also very important to national economies and plays a crucial role in GDP growth. So the World Bank data analyze the most recent data, which countries spend the largest proportion of GDP on R&D activities. Let's take a look. So here you can see these countries spend the most on research and development from the World Bank data from 2017 and 2018 as percentage of GDP based on most recent World Bank data. So the first one is Israel, South Korea, Switzerland, Sweden, Japan, then Austria, Germany, Denmark, United States, Belgium, and so on. So the data is based from the World Economic Forum. You can go at this website to learn more about this data set at www.worldeconomicforum.org. Now, let's dive deep and explain more this great period called the scientific golden age of Islam right now.
Hello guys, welcome to Online Campus School. Here at Online Campus School, we love to teach, we love to share great ideas and great projects.
So, many centuries while Europe was in the Dark Ages, there was a thriving civilizations and scholarship in the Islamic world. If you would like to learn more in details about this period, I recommend that you read this book called The House of Wisdom by Jim+al-Khalili. It's a book on how Arabic science saved ancient knowledge and gave us the Renaissance. And part of my inspiration for this video came after reading that book. So in the UK, the book was published on the name of Pathfinders, the Golden Age of Arabic Science. In that book, Jim+al-Khalili celebrates the forgotten pioneers who helped shape our understanding of the world. So, for over 700 years, the international language of science was Arabic. So, you can get those books on Amazon and learn more about this period. So, of course, if you're on Amazon.com, you can see here this book, The House of Wisdom, How Arabic Science Saved Ancient Knowledge and Gave Us the Renaissance by Jim+al-Khalili. And you can have the Kindle version, the paperback versions. You can look inside and to have a preview. The House of Wisdom. They give you a free preview for every Amazon book. So this was, published in the US on the title of The House of Wisdom, the Penguin Press in New York. The content you have here, the list of figures, a dream tale of Aristotle, the rise of Islam, etc., etc. It's a great read. Yeah, guys wanting to take off this book is to get and read this book if you want to know the detail of this period called the scientific golden age of Islam. So in the UK, the book was published in the name of Pathfinders, the Golden Age of Arabic Science. And you can still find that, still the same book, can still find that version on Amazon too, where Jim+al-Khalili celebrates the forgotten pioneers who helped shape our understanding of the world. For over 700 years, the international language of science was Arabic. So on. Yeah, so just take a look and where you can learn more about this period. So the Golden Age began in the middle of the 9th century, centered around the capital of the Islamic Empire at that time in Baghdad. This age began by translating many texts from Greece, India, Persia into Arabic language. Now, not all of the scholars were Arabs, many were Persians, and not all of the scholars were Muslims, many were Christians and Jews. This was a period when scholarship was encouraged for the sake of learning, and it shows that science achievement does not depend on where you came from, what civilization you're part of, what language you speak, what culture you're from, or what religion you follow. Science is about asking questions about the natural world around us. And it is important to remind the Muslim world that science was not a construct of the West. And science goes all the way back to Egypt, to ancient Greece, to the golden age of Islamic science or Arabic science, and all the way through the Renaissance and the scientific revolution in Europe. So here is a list of few very well-known scientists during this period. This is not a complete list, and I apologize in advance for not mentioning your favorite scientist in this period. So the first one is Jabir ibn Hayyan. Jabir ibn Hayyan is one of the first scientists of the Golden Age. He lived in the 8th century in Iraq. He's regarded today as one of the first true chemists. In the Arabic word, chemistry is alchemia, from which the word alchemy derives. So he was doing proper science and chemistry, mixing chemicals, learning about properties of acids. And by the way, we know now that the English word of alcohol derived from its Arabic origin. Jabir ibn Hayyan gave the first diagram of the eye in his book. He was also a mathematician. Another scientist in this period is Huyyan ibn Ishaq. He was a Christian scholar in Baghdad. He translated the works of the ancient Greeks into Arabics. This shows also that not all scientists were Muslims, because this was a period of tolerance and inclusion. Baghdad was then the place to go to learn science. Today, everyone wants to go to Harvard or MIT in the US. Back then, the place to go was Baghdad, and all cultures and religions was tolerated. The next one is Al-Kindi. Al-Kindi is a great Arab philosopher of his time. He studied the work of the Greek and linked it with Islamic theology for the first time. He was also a mathematician, physician, and musician. Al-Kindi was the first of the Islamic philosophers and is considered as the father of Arab philosophy. In the field of mathematics, Al-Kindi played an important role in introducing Indian numerals to the Islamic world. Subsequently, he relabeled them as Arabic numerals to the Christian world, along with AlKhwarizmi. Al-Kindi was also known as one of the fathers of cryptography. He invented frequency analysis, a mathematical method used to break codes in cryptography. In the book called the Code Book by Simon Sina, he talked about Arab cryptanalysts and acknowledges the contributions of Al-Kindi in cryptography. Ibn Sina, if you visited Arab countries, you will see a lot of Ibn Sina names, hospitals, the road names. So Ibn Sina is probably the greatest and famous of the scholars of the Islamic period. He was the Einstein of the medieval world. And he wrote a book on medicine called The Canon of Medicine, which was so influential that it was the standard text on medicine for 6 or 7 centuries around the world. In the Middle Ages, if you went to a library in Paris, for example, if you want to study medicine, you read the Latin translation of Ibn Sina's book, The Canon. He is known in the West as Avicenna. Ibn Sina is regarded as one of the most significant physicians, astronomers, thinkers, and writers of the Islamic Golden Age and the father of early modern medicine. Next, AlKhwarizmi. AlKhwarizmi, and formerly known in Latin as AlKhwarizmi. So the name of this scientist, AlKhwarizmi, was translated to Latin, and that means algorithm, where we get the name of algorithm. He was vastly influential in mathematics, astronomy, geography. He was appointed as the astronomer and head of the library of the House of Wisdom in Baghdad. And of course, he wrote one of the most celebrated books in the history of the world, which is his book on algebra. Another word, algebra, deriving from the Arabic al-jabr. He wrote a book called Kitab al-Jabr, meaning the book of completion. Algebra, completion. So this was the first book that gave us the field of algebra as a new subfield in mathematics. The Greeks was very good at geometry, but algebra, the way we use equations of x and y to solve problems today can be all traced back to AlKhwarizmi's book written in the 9th century. Razi, one of the scientists, Razi, also known by his Latin name Razi, he was a physician, philosopher, a great chemist, and widely considered as one of the most important figures in the history of medicine. He also wrote on logic, astronomy, and grammar. Today, in any school in the world, you see the periodic tables of elements laid out in chemistry. Razi was probably one of the first scientists who began to classify the elements correctly according to their physical and chemical properties. The ancient Greeks believed that there was just 4 elements: earth, air, water, and fire. And everything was derived from those. But Razi went way beyond that in classifying salts, minerals, metals, understanding their properties. He was also one of the people who built the first hospitals in the world. A hospital as we understand it today, a place where people go to get treatment by doctors. Next one, Zahrawi. Zahrawi, also known in Latin as Abul Qasis, was a physician, a surgeon, and a chemist from Al-Andalusia in Spain. He is considered to be the greatest surgery doctor in the Middle Ages, and he's been referred also as the father of modern surgery. He developed and invented many instruments of surgery like the forceps and the syringe, instruments that we still use to this day. Ibn Nafis. Ibn Nafis was an astronomist from Syria. He is known for being the first to give the explanation of blood circulation. He was the first to understand that the heart has partition and that blood does not transfer from one side to the other, but has to go all around the human body. And he has been described as one of the father of circulatory physiology. In astronomy, there's a list of many scientists, Arab and Muslim in astronomy, like Al-Tusi, Al-Battani, Ibn Shatr, all great philosophers in the Golden Age who went to influence people like Copernicus. Now, many historic books would say that Copernicus was the first scientist, that Copernicus started the scientific revolution. It was Copernicus who said that our planet Earth goes around the sun and not the other way around, like the sun going around the earth, which was a great and amazing discovery. But Copernicus was influenced by some of these Islamic scientists. As a proof, if you look at Copernicus' original book published in 1543 called De Revolutionibus Orbium Coelestium, meaning on the revolutions of the celestial spheres, which is, by the way, a major, huge event in the history of science, triggering the Copernican revolution and making a great contribution to the scientific revolution. So in Copernicus' book, you can look throughout in the back of the book, there are pages and pages in Arabic of star charts going back to the time of Al-Battani. The mathematics Copernicus used to develop his model can be traced to the work of Al-Tusi and Ibn Shatr. At the time, scholars in Europe acknowledged and understood the contribution of Muslim scientists. Their work was translated to Latin and distributed around Europe. Any scholars in the Middle Ages who wanted to learn about astronomy or medicine or algebra or chemistry would have to travel to the Muslim world to find out the latest in research. They would go to Andalusia, to Toledo, to Granada, to Cordoba. They would go to Baghdad. The great Italian mathematician Fibonacci learned Arabic. He went and studied the work of AlKhwarizmi, and in his book, The Great Text on Mathematics, he acknowledges the contributions of AlKhwarizmi. In engineering, let's not forget the contribution of Aljazeera. Aljazeera was best known for writing the book of knowledge of indigenous mechanical devices in 1206, where he described 50 mechanical devices along with instructions on how to build them. He is credited with the invention of the elephant clock, and he is considered by many as one of the fathers of robotics and modern day engineering. Al-Jazari developed many different instruments that help with pumping of water, and Al-Jazari's original book can be found today in Istanbul, in Turkey. So, these are few examples of some of the great scientists during the golden age of Arabic science. Even in geography, maps of the world were redrawn. Al-Idrisi developed a map of the world, a map with great details and more accurate at that time than anything the Greeks like Ptolemy had provided at that time. The Islamic world was first driven by their need from their religions to understand the world around them. They developed sophisticated geometry to know which direction to face to do their prayers, to know what's the month of Ramadan during the year, and so far, so on. Even the scientific method itself can be traced back to this golden age. Traditionally, we think of the fathers of the scientific method as people like Galileo or René Descartes. Well, Ibn Haytham, one of the scientific of this period, wrote a definition of the scientific method 1,000 years ago that is still compatible of today's definition of what is a scientific method. Now, what about science in the Muslim world as of today? We can all acknowledge and recognize that there are still a lot of work to be done. Here is a quote from a physicist from Pakistan named Pervez Hoodboy, who said, quote, "With well over 1 billion Muslims and extensive material resources, why is the Islamic world disengaged from science and the process of creating new knowledge?" End quote. Pervez is a graduate from MIT in the US. In 2011, he was included in a list of 100 most influential global thinkers by Foreign Policy. He is the author of a book called Islam and Religion, Religious Orthodoxy and the Battle for Rationality. So yes, there might be a problem that needs to be addressed. Many people still treat science with a degree of suspicion that somehow it's a Western thing imposed on Muslims by our side. Now, many leaders understand also that we need science and technology, technological advances. The data and the facts, on the other hand, tells us another story. So many Muslim countries spend on average less than half of 1% of their GDP on research and development R&D. Less than half of 1% of their GDP on R&D. And that is very, very low compared to the rest of the developed world, which spend at least on average 5% of their GDP on research and development. And the number of scientists and engineers per capita, which is the number of science and engineer per 1,000 of the population, is less than 10 in the Muslim world, and also very low compared to the rest of the developed world, which has an average number of 140 per 1,000 of the population. What is more important is not just these numbers, but the quality of the research. And today there's some hope. We are starting to see some good improvements, but there's still a long way to go. So let's talk about some of the great success stories of today. As an example, the research university KAUST in Jeddah in Saudi Arabia, it's up there among the top universities in the world today. And that happened very quickly. Other great examples are the Education City in Doha, Qatar, or the Dubai Knowledge Village in the UAE. Also, you can think about Dubai International Academic City in the UAE, and one of the great projects in the Muslim world today is a research laboratory called Sesame, built in Jordan. It's a particle accelerator, not as big as the Hadron Collider in Geneva, but still a great research project. It sends particles around a ring close to the speed of light, and the particles emit light, which then is used for all kinds of different applications in medicine, physics, chemistry, biology, and so on. And that is built in Jordan with a collaboration from many, many different countries, including Israel, Palestine, Iran, and others. And this project is probably one of the rare occasions outside the United Nations where you can see delegates from Iran, Israel, and Palestine on the same room working together, because science crosses political and cultural boundaries. And today, there's a great project in the Emirates. The Emirates Mars mission, EMM, is the United Arab Emirates' first mission to Mars. The Emirates Mars mission is a United Arab Emirates Space Agency uncrewed space exploration mission to Mars. The Hope orbiter was launched on July 19, 2020 and went into orbit around Mars on February 9, 2021. You can learn more about this project at emiratesmarsmission.ae. So these are great examples of scientific achievement and a great hope in the Muslim world of today. And I cannot wait to see more and more of this kind of discoveries in the future. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time, my friend.